person, the last thing that we want to do is start telling people rate, right? Like as a salesperson doing this for 17 years as a mortgage business, it's really about the payment, right? So anytime somebody's buying a house, right now rates, when rates were 3%, obviously somebody could afford a house, a higher priced house because the payment's a little bit less. But we're never selling rate, we're selling payment. Just like you guys are selling a dream in an area. Like once a client starts talking about rate, we got to turn that conversation around, and we really have to start talking about housing, payment, and comfortability and affordability, which is what's Brandon's question. So, yeah, look, affordability compared to, I think a year ago, yes, it's harder to afford a house, and it's tighter to afford a house, inflation and this and that. But when you really break everything down, the affordability of a house is still cheaper than renting, even with rates being up. And the affordability, if you also break it down, and there's a great analysis which I could share with everybody, but at the end of the day, the hourly, people are making more money per hour and it's a salary than they've ever made. So the affordability is actually the same, if not more affordable than it's ever been. So it's kind of it's just over the mental hump.
Yeah, I want to jump on that real quick. And Jeff, you can jump in right afterwards. You're not here to cut me off. It's interesting though, specifically in the city, because I know we have a lot of people who sell in the city. Our team sells a lot in the city. Something that I was thinking about the other day is that values in the city compared to 2007 in a lot of areas downtown they have not gotten back to those 07 values, which is surprising when people think about it. The interest rates are very similar to what they were in 2007. So you think about it from the perspective of inflation, and obviously inflation's been more of a hot topic lately, but inflation is always happening, or usually taking place. But from an affordability standpoint, when we compare a monthly payment today downtown with today's interest rates and prices, it's very similar. The dollar amount is very similar to what the payment was in 2007.
When people were making less money.
When people were making far less money and had way more debt. So it's so much of our job. I talked about it with Eric, and talked about it with our sales team yesterday, is becoming the economist of choice, the local economist of choice. And to be able to help people put things in perspective so they don't just get shocked by a rate hike, which will continue in all likelihood through the year to increase. Hopefully, I expect probably on a much smaller scale than what we've seen over the last 6 months. But to be able to talk about these things and help a buyer who is thinking, well, maybe I'll just wait for rates to go back down. Those are the conversations that we need to be able to arm ourselves with, be able to educate them. It's not just about selling something. Obviously, that's how we get paid at the end of the day. But it's about helping people make good decisions. And a buyer who says, I want to wait until rates go back down, how harmful that thought process can actually be to them. And it's our job to help educate them to understand it.
And it's less affordable to that point. It's less affordable because if the standard, right now we went through a 16% appreciation rate in the housing market. So if a person bought a house for $100,000 3 years ago, 16% every single year just raised. So $16,000 every single year they gained. Whereas standard appreciation rate is typically 5 to 6%. So if that question comes up, I'm just going to wait till rates drop. I don't think we're going to see 2.5%, 3% again. I hope so, because that was really nice. But the end of the day, if you wait and rates even stay the same or drop a little bit, that house is gaining a typical 5 to 6% appreciation every single year, which is increasing the amount that they need to put down and making it less affordable on a monthly basis. So to Mark's point, I've been working with Mark for a very long time. It's all about education, and it's really just kind of just giving them the knowledge of what's out there. So
getting some understanding of whether it can really fit their budget now. I mean, the affordability is such a very personal thing because if you take out sort of just the national headlines about it. It's really a case by case basis. Does this fit your personal budget? Can this work for you now? And what are your alternatives? But also helping them understand that that payment will never feel more expensive to them than at that exact moment then they take it on. Because the likelihood is they're going to continue to advance in their career. They're going to continue to receive wages. They may add another income to the household if there isn't already an additional one there. And the likelihood that rates will go down and there will be refinance potential or room to remove PMI at some time in the future is a very high likelihood. So to the extent that it can make their budget work now and it's the right move for their timing, then helping them understand that there will be relief from that payment through, like I said, increase in wages and reducing the payment in the future is very likely.
So, and you guys make a very good point about being, in Mark said the best, being the economist of choice. And you guys have that knowledge. And I think we all want to get better at speaking the same language. So let's just take something that happens in the news. The Fed jumps the rates by 3/4 of a point. What does that mean? How do I explain that to my client about what that does to affect their affordability?
Am I up?
Want to take, because I've been jumping the first one. You want to take that, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. So
Next time you better be here.
the decision that I'm just laughing because I can't hear anything being said.
All right, so the Fed rate hike is expected next week.
So the Fed increasing interest rates has no direct correlation on our 30-year fixed interest rates, which are typically what people are applying for. What that'll have effect on, most specifically in housing, is the cost on a monthly basis of home equity lines of credit that will move with the Fed. What's happening right now is that the more the Fed increases interest rates, the more confidence the market has that they're going to get a handle on inflation, or they're going to cause a recession, which they may have already caused, and in doing so have likely topped interest rates in some way, or we're going to put us in a position where rates will start coming down in the near future. It's sort of why we've seen them level off, even though the Fed continues to announce that they're going to raise rates, is all a confidence that they're going to get a handle on inflation. And that's the main reason that they keep raising rates, is because they need to curb that, and they actually need to slow the market down a bit, and not just real estate, but prices in general.
And let me touch on to talk about inflation, because a lot of people, inflation's this word that everybody hears about. And I posted on the private Facebook page a while ago something that I wrote on my personal page and then shared it. Is inflation, the definition of inflation, right? We hear this term all the time: inflation, inflation, inflation. Well, inflation is if you buy a good today, right, for $1, and the inflation is now 15%, that good is now worth $1.15, right? So if we're giving somebody an interest rate at 4%, right, and the inflation rate is 9%, we know that we're going to be losing money as a mortgage-backed security, right? If we're lending money at 4% and the inflation rate's 9%, we're essentially losing 5% by lending money today at a 4% rate, knowing that the rate's going to continue to rise inflation rate. So inflation is the deal killer, right? So Jeff was talking about when the Federal Reserve raises in the short-term lending rate, it does impact the mortgages, right? But it actually helps in some cases because it shows to the mortgage-backed securities market that we're actually trying to control inflation, which is the kryptonite to interest rates. So it is not, inflation is what kills mortgage rates. So that's really what we're experiencing right now.
So curbing inflation is key, and we can see that from the federal rates. But as I'm talking to my client, they don't know what the hell inflation is. I can barely explain it to them. How can I better articulate that conversation, or how do I know when to pull you in if they are going off the deep end in fear of, well, the rates are just too high and I just don't think I can afford right now? What's the best strategy for me to take that conversation and turn it to you?
I would say I don't want my agents to really have much of a rate conversation. Obviously, it's you can't prevent it because you're out there showing houses with people. but you really got to revert it back to a local, let me repeat that again, local expert, okay, on this matter, and we will have a conversation. We will educate. You know, I know Jeff's team does a great job too. Our team will do a great job educating the client on, again, focusing on the payment, not so much the rate. Jeff mentioned earlier, private mortgage insurance is required on conventional loans and FHA loans. If you put down less than 20%, really FHA loans forever, but you have the ability to refinance. So you don't need to make yourself too crazy about rate, and allow us to have that conversation. But, you know, it's what we're dealing with. But to Mark's point earlier is you buy a house now, your payment's going to be $2,700 for the next 30 years. You rent right now, your rent payment's going to be $2,700, but in 4 years from now, it's probably going to be $3,200. So sometimes take that little bit of an extra plunge, make yourself a little bit uncomfortable, but you'll be set for the next 30 years. And it will only go down if rates drop.
While Mark was chatting before on the market, not even in some places catching up to 2007, I pushed out a Baltimore Sun article into the chat that explains, and this is one of the things when you talk about bringing on a local lender or everybody having an understanding of the market, the news that's coming out at a national level is taking into account Phoenix's market that is completely out of control, and Boise, Idaho that's completely out of control, growing 70% overnight that won't be sustained. Baltimore got way overheated when in the early 2000s when the market took off. It way overcooled during the recession, and it's sort of in a real sweet spot right now. That Baltimore Sun article I think is a great tool that you can pass on to your buyers if they're trying to figure out whether now is a good decision to buy in the metro area. It all comes with data and research, and it just shows that across the country, we're the least overvalued metropolitan area. And those are the kind of things that if you end up with a lender in Minnesota or California, and they're trying to talk to one of your buyers about, you know, purchasing decisions and whether it's healthy or not, they're not going to have any idea what's going on here and how healthy the market is in Baltimore and the surrounding counties. Or ways to get them in and keep them on board and feeling confident that it's a solid investment for them.
You don't know what a ground rent is.
Chap credit.
I mean, and this is interesting. So I pulled up the article, and just to read one quote from it. Out of the 100 largest metropolitan areas, Baltimore is the least overvalued. According to the model, with an average price just 3% above its expected value. It's a huge stat for you to be able to take and give to your clients when they're talking about, one, the house is overpriced and rates are going up, to let them know that you're really buying in an affordable area. And speaking to the affordability, I think this is what's key with that, and especially from you being able to articulate it to your clients. What John said was, one, the appreciation of the houses, that's going to continue to happen, especially if we can see that we are just 3% above the expected value. The homes in this area will continue to appreciate. They may level off a bit, but I don't think, to Mark's point, they're going to drop back down to the 2007 level. We have people who are making enough money where the affordability matrix in Maryland historically has always been above 90, well, above like 190%, which means the average price that you need to be able to purchase a home, your income that you make, the average salary in Maryland is 190% above what's needed to purchase the average home. We are an affordable state. Using that along with talking about the appreciation levels, the rates really won't have a factor on this person being able to qualify. It's just a fear technique that they hear. And to Jeff's point, if you bring it back to being local, you can really start to see that this is a time. This is a great time. And as he mentioned earlier, which was awesome to hear, it's kind of getting back to normal. We can have deeper conversations with our clients. We can move the needle forward, and we can make sure that they are really ready to go forward and purchase a home. And what I love about what John said was have that conversation around the payment. This is what makes the difference. So ask you guys a question. If we have a, let's say $400,000 house, I know I'm throwing math out there. If that $400,000 house has an increase in interest rate by 1%, what does that typically do to that monthly payment? Let's say they go from 4 to 5%. What on average would you see that monthly payment change?
64 cents per thousand borrowed by a higher interest rate by 1%.
Okay.
So, you know, you're looking at a decent number, 200.
Probably about 10%.
Yeah. So you're looking at a
I
decent
kind
number.
of use the rule, maybe I'm wrong here, but I think the rule of thumb that I've used is that, for every percentage point, you're looking at about 10% difference in payment.
Yeah.
It's not,
Principal and interest payment, yes, yes, just principal and interest, right?
obviously, your taxes and insurance don't change by the interest rate, but yeah, your principal and interest fees will go up. So it changes your affordability by a little less than 10% because of the taxes and insurance.
Okay, and it's, again, I think it's housing payment is what we need to lead with, and you guys need to lead with, because really, I always tell people this, and this has been my line since I got into business 17 years ago, is you can't go to the store and buy a loaf of bread with an interest rate, but you can go to the store and buy a loaf of bread with extra money in your pocket. Meaning you don't want to buy a house that you cannot afford and knowing you cannot afford it. A rate is just a tool to buy the house with, right? It will go down at some point. You will be able to save money at some point. You will be able to tap into the equity, pay off some debt at some point. But you have to make sure that you are comfortable with the payment. Even when rates were 2-3%, that's what I said. You have to be comfortable with the payment. It does not matter about the rate, it's the payment. And I really do think it's one of those things. I mean, unfortunately, we are dealing with some people that may have been qualified at a 3% rate, and now it's 6%, right? Well, you need, as an agent and as a loan officer, we need to get in front of those people to reset their expectation of where their price point is. And it's a good opportunity to reach out to people. We use every opportunity to reach out to people.
And as recently as 2018, we were doing loans in the high fives, and depending on credit or down payment assistance, we were in the sixes. And for anybody that bought in 2018, 3 years later, they feel really, really fantastic about their decision. And, you don't know what 2025, 2026 look like if you got the same thing going on from an appreciation standpoint or what's ahead of us.
Can I touch on one thing too? Because this is something that I'm a big believer in education, and I educate everybody. But one of the questions and the hurdles that I always get is the market's going to crash. It's going to crash, right? And their eyes light up. It's going to crash. It's not going to crash, right? I always tell people the crash was because subprime mortgages, aggressive mortgages, people thinking they could buy all these houses. Unfortunately, the millennial generation, it was we call the renting generation. That's what they're called, right? They rented forever. Builders didn't build because they're the largest generation that could ever have bought, but they decided to rent. And they sat on the sideline forever. So NVR, Ryan Homes, all these builders didn't build to fit this generation. And at one point they just woke up, right? Like a sleeping giant, and said, I want to buy. And it was the perfect time. Rates were good. Housing appreciation was going up. They just woke up and stood up and said, I want to buy. And they bought everything around them, and they caused this market to go up. Well, guess what? There's still so many people on the sideline. There's still an inventory. There's a loss of there's no inventory out there. So we're not going to see the crash. And you have to educate your people on this and this reason. And it's not a crash that is coming. It's not even a correction. It's just not the steroids that we experience. We're not going through 16% appreciation rate. We're going to go through 4 to 6. That's standard.
So you mentioned the clients who are on the sidelines now, but now might be the time for them to get in because they can not go through that same battle. And Jeff mentioned some people have gone through their 5 stages of grief and now they're ready to get back in. What should my conversation be like with a person who said, I've been priced out and I can't get there? How should I start that conversation with them to route them over to you so you can be the experts you guys are to pull them back in for you?
And I think it's just about reevaluating the situation, having a conversation. Look, the market shifted when there was a line around the block of people looking at houses. There's not a line around the block. There's still a lot of people looking at houses. Rates are up, which is causing people, to slow down on it. But it is now still a good time for you to buy, because right now, if a house sits on the market for 20 days, they think it's been sitting on the market for a while. I just got a contract the other day. I got $15,000 in seller contribution. I hadn't seen that in forever. It was insane. 18, you got to always one up, bro. what's in this marketplace is again a correction, and I think sellers are like, you know what? Like sellers put their houses on the market. You guys could attest to this for stupid numbers, and they realize that stupid numbers not there. Well, they're like, okay, well, we'll lower it. We'll get a little bit more of a reasonable number. I'll still get a number I want, and I'll give them some money to seller contribution. So again, it's just let's get in front of the clients again. Send them to somebody local, like Jeff said, right? It really matters to be boots on the ground.
I mean, if just the ability to get a conversation with a borrower who's left the market, and a lot of times at this point, I think a lot of the people that left the market left between May and June as rates really topped out. A conversation of, hey, we're having a lot more luck getting people in, finding the place that they love, finding it without having to put obnoxious offers in. Rates have come back down a little bit. Affordability we might be able to find a sweet spot for you there, and also there might be some ability to get some help from a seller in the form of a seller credit. Maybe we can drive the rate or payment down further. Maybe we can do something like upfront mortgage insurance to get rid of that and land you in a price that's more comfortable. But I think anybody that went through putting a handful of offers in 3 or 4 months ago, a lot of them could re-enter the market now and have a far better experience. And in fact, the majority of the people that we're working with are people that we initially pulled their credit somewhere between December and April, and are now like disappeared for a while, showed back up, put an offer in, got it, we're moving on. It's just so, and most of them at least have seen some numbers in the 5s or 6s, if at least see numbers there, come to terms with them, maybe work their budget out. It might just be checking back in and saying, hey, you should have your numbers run again. There's also a level of, even for people that are pretty qualified, high 600s, low 700s, any little credit improvement that we can do, especially being able to bring their monthly PMI down if they're going to pay monthly, helping them push their credit scores up helps a ton.
I think you said something phenomenal. It gives them a much better experience. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to provide to our clients, is the perfect experience. So knowing that if you reach back out to those people, and that's where you're seeing a lot of the applications go right now, is people who got out 6 months ago, and we're giving them a better experience now. That hits a home run for you, and the ability to share that story for them to grab other clients as you want to continue to move forward. Speaking of the better experience, here's a question that I was asked by a couple of people who had listings. Their deals fell out. The buyers weren't able to qualify or wasn't comfortable with the increase in their payment. What can I do as a listing agent to ensure that the buyer's financing is not just secure, but if there is a fluctuation in the rate, how can I just really tackle that conversation up front before we get too deep in the contract?
Mind if I take that, Jeff?
Go for it.
So as a listing agent, like I love when a listing agent will call me, be like, "Hey, did you check their credit?" I'm like, "Yeah, did you read the pre-approval?" You know what I mean? Like, did you look at their income? Yeah, did you read the pre-approval? Like the question as a listing agent, you guys should ask a loan officer you're not familiar with is, have you run the loan through AUS, automated underwriting system? Do you have an approved eligible? Has it been through underwriting, right? Do you have a credit approval? These are some of these questions that will take it to another level. A pre-approval letter is not worth the paper it's written on. It really is not, right?
Yeah.
It is the loan officer that is writing it. And again, local. It was funny, an agent I would do a lot of business with, is a listing agent. He goes, "Hey, I got this deal. They're doing a FHA spot approval. I've never done one before. What's the deal?" He's telling me it's quick and easy. I said, "Who's the lender?" And I recognized the lender. I said, if he's telling you that, then honestly, he's probably being truthful and he could get it done. Real estate is local. So again, we keep on going back to this, but we are local. We know what we're doing. And if you guys have a question where you have a pre-approval or something like that, shoot it to one of us, including Patrick Swope, who's at DML, Dan, who's always in here. Like, we're happy to kind of just do our little due diligence on it. And another thing that you guys want to look up is there's NMLS Lookup. This is really crucial. There's something called NMLS Lookup. You could look up every loan officer that is licensed to determine, 1, if they're licensed in the state, 2, how long they've been at it, okay? And 3, what companies they're with. One
Yeah,
thing
how often they jump ship from one company to the
So I was
next.
just gonna say, it's insane how many loan officers will jump. There's never been a way up until about 5 years ago for you to look this up, right? So NMLS lookup, just Google it, and you
Yeah.
could type in our names and you'll see literally our employment history, our schooling, everything on us, and you'll see how long we've been in. It won't tell you how much business we do, but it will tell you everything about the loan officer that you're dealing with. Most real estate agents don't know that, and that is a huge thing, especially if you're dealing with some, online lender or something like that.
Yeah, it's NMLSconsumeraccess.org is the site. A simple question that can be asked, it's actually never been asked to me, but if you're looking for a way, because I think John covered sort of like, are they actually qualified? But I think the concern is that these are buyers that are going under contract and then ending up with some sort of buyer's remorse and looking for a way out. I think there's probably a conversation up front of, does the borrower know what they're bringing to the table? They know exactly what they're bringing to the table within $1,000. And have you explained to them what their new monthly payment is? Do they know what they're paying every month, and can you lock it now? Because it sounds to me in those scenarios, it's hey, we know, we went over payments with the borrower 60 days ago. They've looked at a half a dozen properties. We've gotten to a spot where we're not even running numbers anymore. We're just putting these crazy offers in. Let's see if we can get it under contract. We'll circle back and run numbers later. Now they're under contract. They're in the middle of doing inspections and all that stuff, and disclosures go out to them. And it's like, oh, I didn't know I was going to be paying $2,700. I thought it was $2,300. It was $2,300 the last time. And then it's, oh, well, how can I get out? And so I think there's have you run numbers on this property? Do they know what they're bringing to the table? Do you know what they're paying?
Nice. So that's valuable information, and we can tell that you both have a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate you just sharing just a small bit of it with us right now. John, you mentioned it, that we should be getting in contact with you, whether we're on the list side or buy side, to have you run through and check. How do we send people over to you? What's the best way for us to connect with you?
Appreciate that. Dude, the easiest way, honestly, is meet with us to see if you like to work with us, right? But I will tell you the best thing to do is if you give the card to the buyer, say, call this guy. They're never, ever going to pick up the phone and call us, right? But if you go ahead and pair us up on an email, hey, Alana, it was a pleasure meeting with you. As I CC'd my preferred lender in here, John's awesome. Below you'll find his contact information. Feel free to reach out when you have an opportunity. Hey, John, below Alana's information, reach out to her when she has an opportunity. She's looking in the Baltimore County area, right? Send an email like that. We will respond within less than 2 hours, right? Respond back, and we will reach out and pull the person in. People are hesitant to call a stranger, right? You have to be able to nudge them a little bit. And once they get that little bit of a nudge, they'll develop rapport with us, and we will make you guys look good.
Agreed. No difference really there. The one thing I would say is that if it's coming over in an email, which we're happy to get, putting their phone number in there, it really goes a long way for us being able to contact them. We're also very happy to have that same quick conversation in a text, because we naturally have their phone number there, and we can just reply back to the text and then move it over to email if necessary, or at some point when they fill out the application. The biggest thing is just however you're having the most luck reaching the borrower or your buyer or your client is probably how we're going to have the best luck. So if they reply to a text message in 12 seconds, connect us in a text. If you know that they're sitting at their desk all day, and when you email, they're going to email right back, or if we email them, they're going to see it and reply back to us, then fantastic, we'll do it that way. But we love to have the phone number when we can. We can just get a lot further, a lot faster if we can land on a conversation.
Set the expectation, and that's a good point with all the text and everything, but set the expectation up front with the client that I'm going to pair you up with my preferred lender. I'm going to pair you up with my preferred lender. I know that you may have been talking to some online companies or big national banks, but this marketplace, and any market, rather, not marketplace, because I know we talk about Keller Williams marketplace, but this market, listing agents want to work with people they know and companies they trust. And Jeff, John, Patrick, Dan, all have an incredible reputation. And I'm going to put you in the best possible position to buy a house. And that's why I wanted you to talk to them. That's it. You don't like, and we will take it to close. But you've got, like, if you're allowing somebody to play with your money by using an online bank or a national bank, and I'm not poo-pooing them, but they're holding on to your money because if they can't close the deal, you don't make any money. Trust the people that are going to get it to closing.
Say, Melissa put everybody's contact information in the chat, so hop on over there to check that out if you would like anybody from today's information.
So
Cool.
Well, hey, I appreciate you guys taking the time out. It was fabulous to have you here, and I think this was a value. Did everybody get something from it?
Yeah.
Awesome.